Deep in the Agayambo swamp of Papua New Guinea, a local villager tells explorers an incredible story. Deep in the jungle, surrounded by water and crocodiles, sits a massive ghost plane, a metal bird that has been there longer than anyone can remember. For decades, the story was dismissed as local legend. The swamp was too remote, too dangerous, too impenetrable. But in 2006, when adventurers finally reached the site, they found something extraordinary. A B-17E Flying Fortress bomber sitting upright in the swamp as if it had landed yesterday, perfectly preserved after 64 years in the jungle. Inside the cockpit, thermoses still contained coffee. Personal belongings were undisturbed. The aircraft's condition was so remarkable that it would eventually be recovered and displayed at Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, where it sits today, arguably the world's only intact and unreconstructed World War II era B-17E bomber still bearing its original battle scars. But the Swamp Ghost is just one of hundreds of World War II aircraft still being discovered in the 2020s, nearly 80 years after the war ended. In 2018, a P-38 Lightning was found under 300 feet of Greenland ice. In 2024, Ace of Aces Richard Bong's fighter was discovered in Papua New Guinea jungle after 80 years. Just last year, divers located bombers in Pacific lagoons that have been missing since 1943. Modern technology, drones with ground-penetrating radar, DNA analysis, underwater ROVs, satellite imagery, is revealing aircraft that vanished without a trace decades ago. Ghost planes are emerging from glaciers, jungles, swamps, and ocean depths, each one a time capsule from the deadliest conflict in human history. Today, we're exploring the incredible discoveries of World War II, aircraft still being found today, and the stories they tell. Let's start with one of the most remarkable discoveries, the Swamp Ghost. On February 23, 1942, just 77 days after Pearl Harbor, a B-17E Flying Fortress bomber nicknamed Swamp Ghost took off from Australia for a bombing raid on Japanese forces at Rabaul in New Britain, Papua New Guinea. The bomber was built by Boeing in November 1941 and had flown from California to Hawaii just days after the Pearl Harbor attack. It then island-hopped to Australia to join the desperate defense against Japan's rapid expansion across the Pacific. The crew consisted of 9 men led by Captain Fred Eaton. Their mission seemed straightforward: bomb Japanese positions at Rabaul and return to base. But over the target, Japanese anti-aircraft fire hit the bomber hard, damaging the fuel system. The plane began losing fuel rapidly. Eaton faced an impossible choice: attempt to fly back to base hundreds of miles away while hemorrhaging fuel, or find somewhere to land in enemy-held territory. He chose a calculated risk. Spotting what appeared to be a flat grassland, he belly-landed the bomber. It wasn't grassland, it was the Agayambo swamp. But Eaton's skill saved his crew. The B-17 settled into the swamp muck without breaking apart. All 9 men survived. Then began a harrowing 6-week ordeal as they escaped the swamp, evaded Japanese patrols, and made their way through over 100 miles of jungle to reach friendly forces. All 9 crew members eventually reached safety, but the bomber remained in the swamp, slowly sinking into the mud and being swallowed by jungle growth. For decades, the plane sat untouched. Locals knew about it and called it the Swamp Ghost, believing it was haunted. The location was too remote, too dangerous with crocodiles and anacondas, and the swampy terrain made recovery impossible with 1940s or 1950s technology. In 1972, Australian soldiers surveying the area officially confirmed the wreck's existence, but it would be another 34 years before anyone attempted recovery. Enter David Talashe, a World War II B-17 pilot who had become a successful restaurant owner and warbird collector. And when Talashe learned about the Swamp Ghost, he became obsessed. In the 1980s, he began planning the recovery, but the logistical challenges were enormous. The bomber sat in a swamp accessible only by helicopter. The surrounding terrain was treacherous. Every piece would have to be carefully disassembled and airlifted out. The cost would be astronomical. Talashe died in 2007 without seeing his dream fulfilled, but his colleagues continued the mission. In 2006, a team finally reached the Swamp Ghost and began assessment for recovery. What they found was astonishing. After 64 years in a tropical swamp, the aircraft was in remarkable condition. The fuselage was largely intact. The cockpit instrumentation was preserved. And incredibly, the thermoses in the cockpit still contained coffee. The recovery took years. Piece by piece, the bomber was disassembled and airlifted out of the swamp. In 2010, the forward fuselage was displayed in Long Beach, California. In 2013, the aircraft arrived at Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum in Hawaii, where restoration continues. Today, the Swamp Ghost is considered one of the most significant warbird discoveries ever, a perfectly preserved time capsule from the darkest days of World War II. While the Swamp Ghost sat in tropical jungle, another group of aircraft was being slowly buried under hundreds of feet of ice. On July 15, 1942, a group of 6 P-38 Lightning fighters and 2 B-17 bombers departed Greenland for Iceland as part of Operation Bolero, the massive buildup of American forces in preparation for the invasion of Europe. About 90 minutes into the flight, the formation encountered brutal weather, thick cloud cover, whiteout conditions, a Peterak, a sudden violent snowstorm known to Greenland's Inuit people as capable of arising in minutes and reducing visibility to zero. With fuel running low and unable to navigate in the storm, the 8 aircraft were forced to make emergency landings on the Greenland ice cap near Koger Bay. All the pilots successfully belly landed their aircraft on the glacier. Remarkably, all crew members survived. After 9 days exposed to sub-zero temperatures, they were rescued. But the aircraft, known as the Lost Squadron, were left behind on the ice. Military officials assumed the planes would soon be buried under snow and lost forever. They were right about one thing: the planes were buried. Within a year, drifting snow had covered them completely. Within a decade, they were under dozens of feet of ice. After 50 years, they were buried under 260 feet of solid ice. But here's what makes the Lost Squadron fascinating. Glacial ice doesn't just pile up vertically. It flows, it moves, and over 50 years, the buried aircraft migrated several miles from their original landing sites, pushed by the slow but relentless flow of the glacier toward the coast. In the 1980s, entrepreneurs and aircraft enthusiasts became fascinated with the possibility of recovering one of these planes. The P-38 Lightning was an iconic aircraft, twin-tailed, powerful, beautiful. By the 1980s, very few remained in existence and even fewer were still flying. A team led by businessman Roy Schaffner spent years searching the ice with ground-penetrating radar, pulling sleds across dangerous terrain riddled with hidden crevasses, facing polar bears and brutal storms. In July 1992, exactly 50 years after the planes went down, they found one, a P-38 buried under 268 feet of ice. The recovery was an engineering marvel. The team used thermal melting devices to bore a shaft through 268 feet of ice. When they reached the aircraft, they used hot water to melt a cavern around it. The P-38 was disassembled piece by piece and brought to the surface through the ice shaft. What emerged was a complete aircraft perfectly preserved by the ice. Every component was there. After years of painstaking restoration, the P-38 was returned to flying condition. They named her Glacier Girl. On October 26, 2002, Glacier Girl flew again for the first time in 60 years. Aviation enthusiasts wept. It was a resurrection, a World War II fighter flown by the greatest generation, brought back from the dead. But Glacier Girl was just the beginning. In 2018, a new search team using cutting-edge technology returned to Greenland, hunting for more Lost Squadron aircraft. The fallen American MIA Repatriation Foundation, led by businessman and pilot Jim Salazar, deployed something revolutionary: drones equipped with ground-penetrating radar. Previously, searchers had to drag radar equipment on sleds across the ice. Slow, dangerous work that exposed them to falling into hidden crevasses. A ground team might cover a few square kilometers per day, risking their lives with every step. The drones changed everything. Flying 32 feet above the ice, they could scan vast areas quickly and safely. In hours, they could cover what would have taken weeks with ground-based sleds. Within days, they found it, another P-38, buried under approximately 300 feet of ice. This one was identified as P-38 Echo, piloted by Army Air Corps Lieutenant Robert Wilson on July 15, 1942. To confirm the find, the team lowered a heated probe through the ice. When it was pulled back up, it was covered in hydraulic oil, definitive proof they'd hit an aircraft. The team plans to recover Echo using the same thermal melting technique that retrieved Glacier Girl. Large heated plates will melt a shaft down to the aircraft. Hot water will create a cavern around it. Then Echo will be disassembled and brought up piece by piece for restoration. But Salazar's team has an even more important mission. They're searching for a U.S. Coast Guard Grumman J2F-4 Duck aircraft that crashed on the same glacier in November 1942 during a search and rescue mission. The Duck was carrying 3 men, Lieutenant John A. Pritchard Jr., a decorated pilot, Petty Officer First Class Benjamin Bottoms, and U.S. Army Air Corps Corporal Lauren Howarth. They were searching for survivors of a C-53 Skytrooper that had also crashed on the glacier. The C-53 crew, 5 men, survived the initial crash, but rescuers never reached them. Brutal weather, subsequent crashes of rescue aircraft, and the remote location meant these men were never brought home. They starved or froze to death on the ice. None of these 8 men, the 3 Duck crew and 5 C-53 crew, have ever been recovered. Our intention is to repatriate these men, Salazar told reporters. Using drones and ground-penetrating radar, his team continues searching the ice for the Duck and the C-53, hoping to finally bring these men home after nearly 80 years. While ice preserves aircraft in Greenland, the jungle presents different challenges and different discoveries. In May 2024, explorers made a stunning announcement. They had found a Lockheed P-38 Lightning in the jungles of Papua New Guinea that once belonged to America's ace of aces, Major Richard Bong, who shot down a record 40 Japanese aircraft during World War II. Bong named his P-38 Marge after his fiancée, Marge Vattendahl. When he was pulled out of combat in late 1944, military leadership feared the propaganda disaster if their top ace was killed. Another pilot, Tom Malone, took over flying Marge. On a weather reconnaissance mission in 1944, Marge's engine malfunctioned. Malone crash-landed in the jungle. He survived, but the aircraft was never recovered. For 80 years, Marge sat in the jungle, slowly being swallowed by vegetation. The Bong Veterans Historical Center partnered with the non-profit Pacific Rex and local Papua New Guinea villagers to mount a search expedition. After trekking for 2 days through grasslands and jungle, climbing hillsides and hacking through dense vegetation, they found it. The discovery was bittersweet. This was the aircraft flown by America's greatest ace, a man awarded the Medal of Honor by General Douglas MacArthur himself. Richard Bong had survived the war only to die in 1945 while test flying a P-80 Shooting Star jet in California, just months before Japan surrendered. But Marge survived. She's still there in the jungle, a monument to the ace of aces. Papua New Guinea's jungles hide dozens, possibly hundreds, of crashed World War II aircraft. The fighting there was brutal. The Kokoda Track Campaign, the Battle of Bunagona, the Siege of Rabaul. Both Allied and Japanese aircraft went down in thick jungle where recovery was impossible. Many crash sites are known to local villagers who have protected them for generations. Some contain remains of crew members who were never recovered. Others, like the Swamp Ghost, are remarkably preserved time capsules. Project Recover and other organizations work closely with Papua New Guinea communities to locate and document these sites. Each discovery brings the possibility of identifying missing servicemen and bringing them home to their families. While jungles and glaciers preserve aircraft, the ocean presents the greatest challenge and the greatest mystery. Thousands of World War II aircraft rest on the ocean floor. Some are in shallow lagoons, accessible to modern divers. Others lie thousands of feet down in ocean trenches beyond the reach of a current technology. In recent years, underwater discoveries have accelerated thanks to improved sonar, ROVs, and satellite technology. In Palau, Project Recover has located dozens of aircraft in the waters around the islands, bombers, fighters, and seaplanes that went down during the brutal 1944-1945 campaign. Some crashes were witnessed, others vanished without a trace and remain mysteries for 70-plus years. Each discovery begins the painstaking process of identification. Is this a known loss or an unknown loss? Can the aircraft be matched to mission records? Are there remains that can be recovered and identified? DNA analysis has revolutionized this process. Even after 80 years underwater, bones and teeth often contain enough genetic material for positive identification. When remains are recovered, they're sent to the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA, laboratory where forensic scientists work to identify them. In 2023, remains were identified from a torpedo bomber found in Palau's Malakal Harbor, 79 years after the aircraft was shot down. The crew members' families, multiple generations removed, finally received notification that their loved ones had been found. You might wonder, why does this matter? World War II ended nearly 80 years ago. Everyone who flew these planes is either deceased or in their late 90s. Why spend millions of dollars recovering aircraft from ice, jungle, and ocean? Several reasons. For the families, 72,000 American service members from World War II are still missing. 72,000 families never received their loved ones' remains for burial. Every aircraft recovered brings the possibility of identification and closure. For history, these aircraft are time capsules. The Swamp Ghost's coffee thermoses, Glacier Girl's perfect preservation, personal effects, photos, letters, dog tags, all tell stories that written records cannot. For aviation heritage, many World War II aircraft types no longer exist. The Swamp Ghost is the world's only intact, unreconstructed B-17E bomber from combat. Every recovered aircraft is irreplaceable. For accountability, the American promise to service members is, we will never leave you behind. Finding these aircraft, identifying the crew, and bringing them home honors that promise. For the lessons, these discoveries teach us about wartime operations, aircraft performance, survival, and the brutal realities of combat in remote theaters like the Pacific and Greenland. And there's something deeply moving about these ghost planes emerging from ice, jungle, and ocean after 8 decades. They're reminders that the past isn't really past, it's still out there, waiting to be discovered. Right now, in 2025, there are hundreds of World War II aircraft waiting to be found. Some are buried under Greenland ice, slowly migrating with glacier flow. Some are hidden in Papua New Guinea jungles, known to villagers but never officially recorded. Some rest on ocean floors in waters now accessible with modern diving technology. And some are in places we haven't even begun to search. Modern technology means that what was impossible in 1945 or 1975 or even 2005 is now achievable. Drones with ground-penetrating radar can find aircraft under 300 feet of ice. DNA analysis can identify remains from a single tooth. Satellite imagery can see through jungle canopy to reveal crash sites. The Swamp Ghost, Glacier Girl, Marge, P-38 Echo, and dozens more aircraft discovered in the 2020s prove that ghost planes are still out there, still emerging, still telling their stories. Each discovery is a small victory against time and forgetting. Each identification brings closure to families who have waited generations. Each recovered aircraft preserves a piece of history that would otherwise be lost forever. The search continues. In Greenland, teams hunt for the lost duck and C-53. In Papua New Guinea, Project Recover works with local communities to locate crash sites. In ocean waters across the Pacific, underwater archaeologists map the seafloor looking for aircraft that vanished 80 years ago. Ghost planes are still being found today, and they will continue being found for decades to come, as long as people remember, as long as technology advances, and as long as we honor the promise, we will never leave you behind. Thank you for watching. If you found these discoveries fascinating, please subscribe for more World War II content. And let me know in the comments, which discovery amazed you most? Should we keep searching for all the missing aircraft? Until next time, remember, the past is never truly gone. Sometimes it's just buried under 300 feet of ice waiting to emerge.